In this video, I'll be discussing gutters and how they're used inside of the drainage and utilities workflow. When we talk about a gutter, this could be different shapes such as parabolic, V-shaped, trapezoidal, even irregular. But in most cases, this is typically what we're talking about, the conventional shape. So we have the depressed area between the pedestrian walkway and the roadway, and the purpose of the gutter is to collect the runoff and then route it to the next downstream inlet. Spread and depth are going to be measured at the upstream side of the inlet, since that's typically where the values are going to be the greatest prior to the water being captured by the inlet openings. If the efficiency of an inlet is less than 100%, then that means not all of the water is going to be captured by that inlet, and then there will be some bypass flow. So by placing these gutters between the inlets, we can control the bypass flow and direct it to the next downstream inlet. So let's look at some different types of gutter elements that we can place. There are various shapes that we can choose from when we're placing gutters, but I'm going to categorize the gutters into two different categories. So category 1 is going to be the gutter catalog, user defined, and then use start and stop node. And then category 2 I'll call just use gutter sections. First we'll take a look at the difference between the shapes. So if we're using anything in category 1, we're going to have a shape defined by either conventional, parabolic, V-shaped, trapezoidal, or irregular. And then if we're using the use gutter sections, we're actually going to be pulling the shape of the gutter from the terrain model. Next I'll look at how spread and depth are analyzed between the two. Now, for both methods, we are always going to be calculating the spread and depth at the upstream side of each catch basin. However, if we use gutter sections, we can additionally get information along the section of the gutter. So we can specify an interval, and that's going to cut a section along the gutter segment at that interval, and we'll be able to calculate a spread and depth at each one of those sections and analyze what's happening between the two inlets. Now when we think of how these are placed differently, if we are going to be placing a gutter from a catalog or user defined or just pulling from the start or stop node information, we're going to be using between node placement method, where we'll choose our upstream node and our downstream node. If we're using gutter sections, then that's going to use the trace slope method, where we'll just only need to select our upstream node, and then it's going to trace along our flow path to find the downstream node. And lastly, we'll look at the methodology. So between the two, the methodology is going to be the same. If we're using an irregular shape, then we're going to be using open channel methodology. And then if we use any other shape, whether that be conventional, parabolic, or V-shaped, or trapezoidal, then HEC 22 methodology is going to be used instead. So looking inside of the DGN lib, notice for the gutters I only have 3 feature definitions for the gutters. I have from model, which is going to be the use gutter sections. I have from start node and from stop node. You may additionally choose to list all of your different types of gutters here. However, I don't feel that's really necessary, because when you're using the gutters, the primary purpose of this is just to direct your bypass flow. The actual calculations are going to be driven from the catch basin node. So for instance, if I look at the settings for a catch basin prototype, down here in the physical section, we're going to be specifying a gutter here. So it doesn't really matter what you're using to link the two inlets together with a gutter. The spread and gutter depths are going to be calculated with the information coming from the catch basin prototype. So to simplify things, I'm going to have a smaller list of feature definitions to use for gutters. One if we're going to use from the model, and then I'll have 2 more where we can just pull directly from the start and the stop nodes. Now I'm still going to be creating a gutter catalog, and that's going to be based off of the curb and gutter sections that we have available for that agency. But these are not going to be fed into gutter feature definitions. Instead, these are going to be leveraged inside of our catch basin prototypes, where we'll be able to choose from gutter catalog and then specify that gutter